Have you ever wondered what it's like to be lost in the woods, alone and afraid? Our story begins with Jerald, a boy of just 12 summers, brimming with curiosity and a thirst for adventure. His eyes sparkled with an insatiable curiosity about the world beyond the familiar. This curiosity one day led him to the edge of the foreboding woods, a place whispered about in hushed tones by the village elders. The woods, a symphony of dark greens and browns, stretched out like a vast unexplored wilderness. Its dense canopy, a tapestry woven by nature, allowed only slivers of sunlight to penetrate its depths. The rustling leaves whispered ancient secrets while the breeze carried the musky scent of the undergrowth. It was both fascinating and terrifying, a place where beauty danced with danger. Jerald, his heart pounding with adrenaline, stepped into this unknown wilderness. For a while, the thrill of the unknown overpowered any sense of fear. He reveled in the unfamiliar sounds, the crunch of leaves under his feet, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. He ventured deeper, oblivious to the warning signs that nature subtly displayed. However, as the sun started its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and red, reality began to sink in. The chirping of the birds replaced by the eerie silence of the night. The familiar trail he had been following seemed to disappear, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Panic started to creep in, like a cold hand slowly closing around his heart. The once enticing wilderness now seemed monstrous, its beauty replaced by an oppressive darkness. The rustling leaves no longer whispered secrets but seemed to mock his naivety. Darkness grew thicker with each passing minute, swallowing up the last rays of the setting sun. As dusk fell, Jerald found himself alone, lost, and afraid in the heart of the dark woods. The realization was chilling. He was a small, vulnerable being in a vast, indifferent wilderness. His adventure had turned into a nightmare, a dance with fear and the unknown. The thrill was gone, replaced by a primal fear of the dark, the loneliness, and the uncertainty of what lurked in the shadows. If you're on the edge of your seat, just as Jerald was on the brink of the unknown, and you're enjoying our story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for what happens next in Jerald's thrilling adventure. In the eerie silence of the woods, Jerald felt the chilling presence of something unnatural. The sun had long since set, and the once innocent wilderness had transformed into a sinister theater of shadows, where every creak and rustle seemed to bear a dreadful secret. Jerald's heart pounded in his chest like a wild drum, each beat echoing his growing fear. He could hear the whisper of the wind, a soft hissing sound that seemed to carry his name on its breath. It was as if the woods themselves were alive, watching him, observing his every move with a cold, predatory gaze. His senses heightened, Jerald began to pick up on the strange noises that filled the night air. The rustling leaves underfoot took on a sinister quality, each crunch seeming to echo into the unknown darkness. The normal night sounds of the forest, the hoot of an owl, the distant howl of a wolf, were transformed into menacing threats. A chilling wind blew through the trees, causing them to sway and groan eerily. The wind seemed to whisper his name, a chilling sibilance that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Each gust seemed to carry with it a sense of impending doom, an unseen dread that wrapped its icy fingers around Jerald's heart. The darkness was oppressive, a thick blanket that seemed to smother the life out of everything it touched. The shadows seemed to move, to creep and crawl around him as if they were alive. The more he looked, the more he felt like he was being watched, like there were eyes in the darkness staring back at him. Jerald's fear was not unfounded. The woods were not as they seemed. There was a presence there, something dark and malevolent, lurking just beyond the reach of his vision. It was the creeping shadows that fed his fear, unseen horrors that seemed to be closing in on him. In the inky darkness, Jerald's fear was growing, fed by the unseen horrors lurking in the shadows. The darkness held a terror far graver than Jerald could have imagined. As the night deepened, a sinister presence began to unfurl within the forest's heart, a being that was the stuff of nightmares, a demon with 2 menacing horns, 3 haunting eyes, and slender hands and legs. Its form was a contradiction, slender yet powerful, and its eyes, oh, those eyes, they held a world of torment that seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. Jerald's heart pounded in his chest like a frantic drum, the rhythm echoing his mounting terror. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to run, to escape from this embodiment of pure evil. But fear, it has a way of anchoring you in place, making your legs feel as though they are made of stone. In the face of this monstrous entity, Jerald was nothing more than a frightened boy lost in the woods. His mind raced, thoughts tumbling over one another in a chaotic whirlwind of fear and confusion. He had to get away, had to escape the demon's chilling gaze. With a surge of adrenaline, he turned on his heel and started to run. The forest seemed to come alive around him, the trees reaching out with gnarled branches, the underbrush tangling at his feet. Panic clawed at his throat as he darted between the trees, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could feel the demon's gaze on him, a malevolent force that seemed to seep into his very bones. But fear can be a cruel taskmaster. It distorts reality, makes the simple act of running seem like an insurmountable task. Jerald's foot caught on a protruding root, sending him sprawling to the forest floor. He could hear the demon's approach, the soft rustle of foliage, the whisper of its slender limbs. In his terror, Jerald stumbled and fell, and the demon drew closer. The forest held its breath, the silence a deafening roar in Jerald's ears as the demon loomed over him. His heart pounded a desperate rhythm, his breath hitched, and his world narrowed down to the horrifying sight of the demon closing in. In the heart of the woods, Jerald was not alone. The demon had found a new host. This was no ordinary possession. It was a slow, insidious takeover. The demon seeped into Jerald's being as if it were a chilling mist, weaving its way through his veins, wrapping itself around his heart and mind. The boy's once innocent eyes started to flicker with an eerie glow, a clear sign of the dark presence within him. Jerald fought. He fought with every fiber of his being, his spirit battling against the dark entity. But the demon was relentless. It was ancient. It was powerful. It wove its way through Jerald's thoughts, twisted his dreams, and warped his reality. The boy who once laughed and played was now a mere puppet, a shell for this demonic entity. His struggle was palpable, a heart-wrenching spectacle of a soul in torment. He would scream out, his voice echoing through the deserted woods, yet there was no one to hear him. His body convulsed as if in pain, his eyes wide with terror. Yet beneath the fear there was a strange acceptance, an understanding that this was a battle he couldn't win. The demon reveled in its victory, delighting in the chaos it had created within Jerald. It basked in the boy's fear, fed on his despair, and grew stronger. The boy's resistance waned, his fight weakened, until there was nothing left of Jerald but a hollow echo. His body fell to the ground, lifeless, but then in an eerie twist he rose again. His eyes were different now, they gleamed with an unholy light. His body moved with an unnatural grace, his voice echoed with a chilling resonance. This was no longer Jerald, the boy who got lost in the woods. Jerald was no more. In his place stood a boy, possessed, his eyes gleaming with an unholy light. The woods fell silent once more, but the tale of Jerald was far from over. The unsettling quiet that blanketed the forest was a stark contrast to the relentless search efforts that had been underway. For days, the local community had been gripped with fear and uncertainty, their frantic cries for Jerald echoing unanswered through the dense wilderness. The discovery of Jerald's lifeless body brought a devastating end to the search. He was found at the heart of the woods, a place where sunlight barely touched the forest floor and the air was thick with an eerie stillness. The boy who had once been full of life and laughter was now a chilling testament to the unexplored dangers that can lurk in the shadows. As the reality of the tragedy set in, a chilling theory began to surface. Whispers of demon possession circulated among the townsfolk, fueled by the strange markings found on Jerald's body and his inexplicable behavior before his disappearance. The local lore was filled with tales of a malevolent entity residing in the woods, a demon with 2 horns, 3 eyes, and slender hands and legs. People began to question if Jerald had fallen victim to this supernatural force. The incident left a lasting impact on the community. Parents held their children closer, fear replacing the carefree spirit that once filled the town. The woods, once a playground for the local kids, now stood as a haunting symbol of loss and fear. This tale serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that hide in the unexplored corners of our world. It reminds us that sometimes the monsters we hear of in stories may not just be figments of our imagination. In the heart of the woods, Jerald met his fate, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows. Remember, curiosity can lead us down paths better left untraveled.